In a previous TikTok that I made, I showed you guys how to do some simple shading improvements and some simple highlight improvements, but in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to get even more advanced than that. So before I do that, I want to quickly show you how it looks before I do all that advanced shading and rendering, and then how it looks after I add those finishing touches. So one thing right off the bat that has helped me improve my shading is having a 3D model reference. This can help you locate where your light source is and also give you a realistic understanding of where the shading can be. I like using dark reds for the shadow, but I have seen people use purple, and that does make the drawing look more vibrant, but I like going for a more dull look. One solid color shading is usually where beginner artists stop, but there is a few simple steps that you can do that are really quick and easy in order to improve this. After I'm done with the basic shading, I like to go in with a desaturated dark purple. I also like to blend out that color in the shadows, but not completely all the way to the edges because then it'll look like a solid color again. And then here's where things start to get a little complicated. So I like to select all pixels on the layer where I have all my shading, and what I do is I expand it by about 5 to 3 pixels. It doesn't really matter what you choose, it more depends on how much detail you have in your drawing. So I expand my selection and I go on another layer, and then I fill in my selection with a red color. So after you fill in the layer with a red color, you want to change the setting to overlay, and then you want to go back to the shading layer, select all those pixels again, and then go back to your layer where you have the overlay and erase the selection. That way only the outer expanded edges are left. Now moving on to the highlights, I like using a very light orange. You could use a very light blue, but that one tends to look a lot more intense. Now we do the same exact thing that we do with the shadows, and we take the original selection, we expand it by 1, we fill it in with the darkest black, and then we take the original selection again, erase that selection, and then set that bottom layer with the outline to overlay. This is what I didn't mention in my TikTok, and I take that same exact shadow color and I make a gradient going up, and then I set that to multiply and I lower the opacity. This is to add more dimension and separation between the background. You probably also noticed that I did that same gradient, same shadow colors, and I make it going the opposite direction, so this time going down. I'm also fixing some of those red shadow outlines that we added earlier, since there's going to be a lot of imperfections with those. Finishing off the shading, I'm also airbrushing the back of the hair because I noticed it was standing out a little too much. A reminder that you'll also want to have this layer on top of all your other layers, including your highlights. Now right here I'm loosely tracing the shape of how I want this top overshadowing light to hit the character that I'm drawing. I'm using a very light blue this time to contrast that warm light orange that I used earlier. I'm also erasing the bottom parts of the shape that I made, that way it doesn't look too intense. And all of this is going to be on an overlay layer. As you can tell, I really love expanding the selection, so once again, we're doing that same exact process. We're expanding it by 5, and this time you're taking a red, you're filling in all that area, and then you're setting it on color dodge. Don't forget to erase the middle selection part that wasn't expanded. Now this is a small detail that I like to add, and I take a red and then I put the layer on divide and I start airbrushing parts that are really deep in the shadows. This one has to be everyone's by far favorite part, and that's airbrushing the face and then setting the layer to color dodge with a red. You can also add this to the hands, the chest, and the ears. One last thing that I forgot to mention and didn't add in the drawing was rim lighting. You can add this at any point of the drawing, but unfortunately I forgot to record any of that process. So here's the final look, and as you can see, I did add the rim lighting after I stopped recording, so hopefully this was helpful. I know it was a very long video, and by no means am I a professional, but hopefully this helped you in some way, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on all my other platforms. Thank you!